tonight, while the embers hold their last color, I want to tell you a story of a climber who went higher than most and found something brighter than a summit. He didn't climb for fame or flags or photographs. He climbed because morning is different above the clouds, because the first light can feel like forgiveness. His name was Erik Halvorsen. Fiction in the name, yes, yet everything you'll hear carries the weight of a dozen real lives, 100 real ascents, the quiet courage of people who kept going when the world asked them to stop. Erik's mountain rises with the greats, near where the wind combs the Himalaya and the jet stream plays its cold violin. Call it Komsen Peak, a name borrowed from a hot wind, placed where the air is thin and blue. There are camps on its flanks, just like any 8,000er. Base, Camp 1 tucked against ice ribs, Camp 3 like a thought barely held, and Camp 4 where the air is too thin for stories, except the ones you whisper to yourself. Erik was strong, yes, but not reckless. He laughed softly, wrote long letters he never sent, and measured risk like a craftsman measures wood, carefully, with respect. He was the kind of climber who fixed lines for strangers, the kind of partner who carried a little more of the rope so someone else could breathe. On the night this story begins, he stands at Camp 3, wind-shivered nylon snapping like prayer flags. Snow drifts against the tent, a powder veil. The team's stove thumps, the flame is a heartbeat. He unzips a journal. The paper is already creased from other mountains, other weathers, other small apocalypses. He writes, "If the weather holds, we'll move before dawn. If it breaks, we'll hold. Everyone is tired, but the mountain looks tired too, as if it wants to sleep. Sometimes I think the sky hears us. Sometimes I think it's busy with bigger things." He closes the book, not because he's finished, but because the ink is freezing. Outside, the face of Komsen looms in starlight. Cornices hang like white scimitars. Seracs blow faintly, a cathedral of ice. The route above Camp 3 threads a couloir, cuts left under a bulge, then climbs a blunt ridge that people call the Gray Edge. He knows the plan by heart, a slow start in the dark, a steady pace through the couloir, a pause at the Gray Edge to drink the tea that will taste like tin and heaven, a push to Camp 4 before the noon wind arrives. He breathes, slow, deep, like a man rehearsing a beautiful song. The last thing he hears before sleep is the sound of the stove going quiet and the mountain answering with its own slow, endless breath. Dawn arrives as a gray chill. Hands find gloves, boots find cold. The tent door peels open to a world where the stars are retreating, reluctant to give up their watch. Headlamps move in a small procession, a rosary of light. Steel bites ice, crampon points, axe picks, the metronome of careful steps. Erik climbs last, not because he is slow, but because he is listening to his partner's breath, to the way the rope tugs when someone slips on dinner plate ice, to the quiet stories in the snow. The couloir rises like a white throat. The snow there is packed hard, wind-sculpted, the surface glimmering like salt. The team ladders their way up. Kick, set, breathe. He passes an old anchor, sun-faded. A shard of webbing flaps like a small banner from another expedition, another winter.
It says nothing and everything. We were here. We hoped. They reach the bulge just as the world begins to show its first color, a thin saffron behind the eastern ridge. Erik calls a halt. They plant axes. They lean into the slope and drink lukewarm tea that tastes like bravery. He looks down valley and sees the earth asleep, ridges like dark fingers, rivers braided in silver, villages reduced to ash-gray breaths of smoke. He remembers something his father said once. The first light is what makes a man honest. They move again. The ridge steepens. The wind rises in polite warnings, finger taps on a window, nothing more. Above, a small plume of snow curls from the summit. If you've climbed long enough, you learn how to read the sky. The plume is a word in a language the mountains speak sparingly. Wait. But there is time. They aim only for Camp 4, a ledge carved like a shelf from the mountain's stern. The summit will be for another day. When the sun finally lifts, it paints the world gold, and for a moment everyone smiles behind their masks. Even the wind seems to watch respectfully. Erik thinks, we are small and we are here anyway. Weather forecasts are a pact between humans and chaos. Most days the contract holds. Today, it tears clean in half. Just before noon, the mountain stiffens. The polite wind becomes blunt. Snow comes crosswise, raked by invisible hands. The gray edge turns truly gray. They radio base, gusts rising, visibility dropping, moving to secure positions. The reply is calm, practical, earthly. Tie in, anchor, sit tight, wait. At the gray edge, they chop a quick platform and huddle. The storm paces like a patient animal, deciding how interested it is in their small, bright lives. Erik checks the team. Fingers, toes, faces, a nod for each person. You okay? You okay? We keep each other warm with questions. We stay alive with answers. Hours stretch. The storm mutes and returns as if breathing. In a gap they push upward, low, deliberate, a quiet assault on the next meter.
The shelf of Camp 4 arrives like a blessing that pretended to be a cliff until you knew the secret. Tents are anchored, lines are tightened, the stove sputters back to life with that metallic cough that means hope. He writes again, glove tips clumsy on the pencil. Camp 4. Wind up, visibility poor. The storm feels like it came to teach us a lesson we already knew. Still, everyone is steady. We'll see what morning brings. He pauses, then adds, if it clears, we'll climb at midnight. If it doesn't, we'll do what brave people always do, live to try again. Outside, the fabric trembles, a zipper chatters. Somewhere in the ropes, a small bell of metal rings randomly, a strange, thin music. Erik smiles. He's always liked how the high places give ordinary sounds a cathedral echo. He shares the stove flame with the team's youngest climber, Noah, whose eyes are wide and honest. Noah says, I didn't know wind had fingers. Erik says, it has 1,000, and a few of them are kind. Night comes early at Camp 4. The world narrows to the circle of light inside the tent, and the knowledge that space is close enough to knock. Midnight. The storm softens like a voice that's done arguing. The stars return, shy at first, then brave. The summit plume is gone, as if a thought has left the mountain's mind. They melt snow, check knots, cinch hoods. Somewhere, someone says a small prayer they never admit to. Erik opens the journal one more time. He writes a letter he will never send. To whoever reads this, if I don't come back, don't worry. I didn't come here to leave. I came here to arrive. The mountain isn't an enemy. It's a mirror, and I needed to remember what I look like when I'm trying. If the sun rises on me up there, know I saw it with everything I had. He tucks the letter into a zip pocket right behind his heart. He's practical like that,
Poetic, but not foolish. They leave camp. The night is a dark silk. Crampons bite. Axes kiss ice. The rope between them draws a line across the slope like a sentence full of commas. The summit ridge is not a place for speeches. The air is thin enough to make words expensive. They trade in nods and small gestures and the softest possible okay? At 8,200 meters, the wind returns, not as a punishment, but as a test. Spindrift flows around their legs like silver smoke. The stars feel close enough to pluck. They reach a narrow step beneath a corniced crown. The route cuts right where the snow overhangs like a porcelain lip. You don't argue with cornices. You move under them like you're passing a sleeping god.
From the darkness on the slope below, a voice, "Fallen!" Another, "Line, we need a line!" Everything becomes suddenly clear. A climber from another team, lower on the traverse, has punched through a wind slab, slid, and is now seated above a drop, anchored only by a tool and a prayer. Erik looks at his partner. No speech is necessary. He moves. He downclimbs clean, classic technique, like a lesson taught by someone who loved him. He reaches the stranded climber, a woman, eyes lit with fear and anger at herself, and plants a T-slot picket. He clips her in. He speaks low and slow, like a lullaby. Breathe with me. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 4. You're good. You're on steel. We're going to stand together. They rise in one motion, like a page being turned. He secures her to the main line. He tells a small joke about tea at the top, and she laughs in disbelief, which is the best sound you can hear that high. Time passes in hard, careful minutes. The crisis dissolves. The rope above tugs twice, the signal to regroup. Erik looks toward the east. The sky there is not yet light, but it carries the rumor of gold. He knows something every mountaineer knows in their bones. You don't chase a summit after you've met the mountain's mercy. He radios up. "We're okay. We're turning from here." Silence. Then, "Copy. Safe travel." They descend to the safer line, then pause on a small shoulder that faces the whole sleeping earth. They anchor. They breathe. They wait. The horizon lifts like a lid. A line of pale fire appears, and with it, a warmth no stove can make. The wind thins to a whisper. Even the snow seems to listen. This is the moment Erik climbed for. Not a summit. Not a summit photo. Not a flag in an album. Just this. The light that makes mountains blush and turns cold into color. The woman he helped, Anita, stands a little apart, eyes glassed with that complicated gratitude we feel when someone's courage returns our life to us. She says very softly, "Thank you." Erik nods. We all take turns being brave. The sun arrives fully now. The world below becomes a map painted with ridges like dragon spines, glaciers like porcelain rivers, clouds like fields of sleeping sheep. Villages wake in small gray breaths of smoke. Somewhere far away, a bell rings in a monastery where no one knows these climbers' names. He reaches for the pocket over his heart, touches the letter. He does not take it out. He does not need to. He has already read it to the sky. There is a thin crack like a match being struck, a cornice somewhere along the ridge shedding a little of itself. The mountain clears its throat. The team looks up in perfect choreography, a lesson, not a threat, a reminder that beauty travels with risk. Erik smiles into the wind, not the grin of a conqueror, the small private smile of a person who found what he came for. He says, barely audible, "There it is." Anita asks, "What?" He answers, "The morning that forgives everything." They begin the descent. The snow holds.
The anchors sing their small metal songs. Rope flows through hands like a story ending well. By late morning, they're back at Camp 4, tents sunlit and humble. The storm has wandered off to trouble other peaks. Stoves rumble, cups steam. Laughter returns the way birds return to a field after rain. Erik opens the journal one more time. Turned below the cornice after a rescue. No summit today. Better prize than that. We saw a sunrise the mountain tried to keep for itself. Shared it with friends. Shared it with the wind. He adds, I once thought strength meant standing alone at the top. Today, it meant kneeling into the snow beside someone else and then standing up together. He tears the letter from its seam, not to leave it, but to put it where future him can find it. He writes at the bottom a last simple line. I am not finished. They descend to Camp 3, then Camp 2, the world growing richer in oxygen, in color, in the small mercies of warmer air. At base, a cook presses hot bread into their hands and won't let go until he's sure they understand this is love. Night falls again on Khamsin Peak. The mountain is unchanged, and yet, because of them, it is not the same. Somewhere along its high ribs, a memory has been pinned like a small flag that only the wind can read. And here, back by our own fire, I think about what it means to be strong and cool in a world that tests both. It isn't the summit photo. It isn't the brag. It's the joke told at 8,200 meters to keep fear from hardening. It's the rope offered without a speech. It's knowing when to turn back and seeing how dawn still finds you. So if you're listening in the dark, if your own mountain is tall and your breath is short, remember Erik's small smile, the letter over his heart, the way the first light polished the world until it shone. Strength can whisper. Courage can be quiet. This was the Last Campfire. Until next time, keep your light.